Hello and welcome back to Newsroom Nigeria. This is where we give you hot, fresh and sizzling news all day long. If this is your first time here, you have not subscribed to this channel, what are you doing? Please make sure you click on the subscribe button. Also like this video. Most importantly, leave your opinions in the comment section. The like will encourage us to keep giving you more reliable and authentic news, and YouTube will be able to recommend this video to other YouTube viewers all around the world. Without further ado, let's delve right into the details of today's news. Professor Peter Ogban, a former returning officer with the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, remains free despite a 3-year prison sentence upheld by the Court of Appeal in April. Sahara Reporters has learned that Ogban, convicted of electoral fraud during the 2019 Akpabio Northwest senatorial election, has not been remanded in prison. On April 13, the Court of Appeal reaffirmed the judgment of the High Court of Akwa Ibom State, which on March 25, 2021 found Ogban guilty of manipulating election results in favor of All Progressive Congress APC candidate Akpabio. Ogban, a professor of soil science at the University of Uyo, continues to walk free despite the court's ruling. He was convicted of falsifying scores and announcing fake results in SCN Udim local government area, Akpabio's stronghold. The court sentenced him to 3 years imprisonment, and he was also fined 100,000 naira. A source familiar with the matter told Sahara Reporters that despite the affirmations of Professor Peter Ogban's conviction and 36 months prison sentence by Court of Appeal, his legal team has once again filed a fresh motion at the Supreme Court to secure his bail, an action the source described as a tactic to deceive the general public. Kanu Akpabio San has filed a motion for bail of Professor Peter Ogban at the Supreme Court, whereas the convicted Peter Ogban is in his home. The source said he applied for bail at the Supreme Court, but it hasn't been heard, so he should be in prison. On May 5, 2025, Ogban's legal team, led by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Kanu Akpabio, filed a motion on notice at the Court of Appeal, Calabar Division, seeking leave to appeal to the Supreme Court. The motion also asked the court to suspend the execution of his imprisonment pending the determination of the appeal. The appeal is against the appellant's court's judgment of April 30, 2025, which affirmed Ogban's conviction in appeal. In his affidavit in support of a motion, Ogban acknowledged his conviction on 2 counts: fraudulent manipulation of election results and publication of false results. He stated that he paid the fine imposed on count 1 and was granted bail pending appeal on count 2, which carried a prison sentence. Despite the appellant's court affirming both convictions, Ogban maintains that he has not violated the terms of his bail and has initiated steps to file a substantive appeal to the Supreme Court. Citing sections 233 subsection 3 of the 1999 Constitution and 21 of the Court of Appeal Act, the motion argues that Ogban's rights to appeal on grounds of fact and mixed law should be preserved. Ogban's legal counsel urged the court to extend the suspension of his imprisonment, referencing the trial court's earlier decision to grant bail. They argue that Ogban's deserves a final opportunity to seek redress at the Supreme Court and emphasize that his right of appeal is fundamental under Nigerian law. In the case between Professor Ogban and the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, the motive specifically seeks the following reliefs: another, granting the appellant leave to appeal against the April 30, 2025 judgment of a Court of Appeal; another, suspending the applicant's imprisonment pending the outcome of the appeal; and any further order the courts may deem fit to make in the circumstances. In a sworn 11-paragraph affidavit supporting the motion, Professor Ogban recounted his conviction by the High Court of Akwa Ibom State for fraudulent manipulation of election results, count 1, and falsification, publication, and announcement of a fake election results, count 2. While he was fined in count 1, he received a 36 months prison sentence on count 2. According to Ogban, he appealed the High Court's judgment, but the Court of Appeal in Calabar upheld his conviction and sentence on April 30, 2025. He stated that he has since applied for a certified true copy of the judgment, but had yet to receive it as of the date of a motion filing. In the legal arguments accompanying the motion, the applicant's counsel argued that the appeal is being pursued in good faith and within the constitutional prescribed 30 days period under Section 233 of the 1999 Constitution and Section 27 of the Supreme Court Act. Citing judicial precedent, the legal team urged the Court of Appeal to exercise its discretion liberally and grant the requested relief, emphasizing that the right of appeal is constitutional and fundamental. They also argue that, in line with Section 21 of the Court of Appeal Act, Ogban's imprisonment should remain suspended pending the Supreme Court's determination, as he has already initiated the appeal process and is entitled to continued bail under the circumstances. Despite these filings, Ogban's freedom remains controversial, with critics arguing that he ought to be in custody since his appeal has already been decided against him by the Court of Appeal and his application at the Supreme Court has not yet been heard. Ogban's notice of appeal filed at the Supreme Court states that he is challenging the entire judgment of a Court of Appeal delivered on April 30, 2025, which upheld his conviction and sentence. In the notice, it says that the lower court erred in several respects, including its interpretation of the charges against him, the evaluation of evidence, and the denial of fair trial rights. In his appeal, Ogban contended that the Court of Appeal erred in affirming his conviction under Count 1, as the charge was vague and failed to specify what it did to constitute manipulation, which political parties were affected, or the scores that were altered. He argued that the vagueness prejudiced his defense. He further challenged his conviction under Count 2, noting that the charge was duplicitous by introducing falsification, which is not an element of offense under Section 123, subsection 4 of the Electoral Act. He maintained that his mischaracterization, coupled with a lack of specifics on what result was falsified or how it was published, denied him a fair trial. Ogban also faulted the appellant court for rejecting the possibility that witnesses for the prosecution, referred to as PW1 and PW2, may have manipulated results before transmitting them to him. He maintained that the court dismissed his argument merely on the basis of his status as a university professor, rather than on the strength of evidence. He argued that the court failed to consider the potential bias or error in the transmission of results by the witnesses. Challenging the factual basis of the conviction, Ogban submitted that, to prove falsification, the prosecution was obligated to present both genuine and falsified election results. He claimed that the prosecution failed to tender polling unit results from EC8A and EC8B, which are the primary documents required to validate electoral outcomes. Instead, the court relied on documents, Exhibit 2 and 5, authored solely by PW1 and PW2, which according to him were not the authentic results from the polling units. Additionally, Ogban claimed that the investigative process was flawed and his constitutional right to a fair hearing was violated, as he was not invited to make a statement before the investigative committee that recommended his prosecution. He argued that the absence of a statement from the prosecution's evidence was a significant omission that compromised the integrity of the trial. The appeal also took issue with the sentencing discretion exercised by the trial court. While the trial judge claimed he had no choice but to impose a prison sentence, the Court of Appeal acknowledged that discretion existed under Section 36, subsection 1 of the Criminal Procedure Law of Akwa Ibom State to impose a fine. However, he declined to extend this discretion to Ogban, citing his status as a university lecturer as justification. Ogban argued that this amounted to consideration of extraneous factors and occasioned a miscarriage of justice, especially as his good character and lack of prior convictions were not disputed. As relief, Ogban is asking the Supreme Court to set aside the judgment of a Court of Appeal and substitute it with a judgment discharging and acquitting him on all counts. Alternatively, he is seeking a modification of a sentence affirmed by the Court of Appeal, asking the Supreme Court to impose a fine or an option of fine in place of a custodian sentence imposed for count 2. So you are the one that will tell the judge on on what punishment to give you. He's not even disputing the fact that maybe he did it or he did not do it. He's saying that the 2 years is too much, that he should be given a fine. You are the one that wants to dictate what sort of punishment to be given to you for a crime that you've committed. Anyway, guys, despite these ongoing legal maneuvers, Ogbans remains a free man more than 4 years after he was found guilty of undermining the electoral process, raising further questions about the enforcement of anti-corruption and electoral integrity laws in Nigeria. You all, let's have your thoughts and opinions in the comment section. Thank you very much for always listening and watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye for now.